Welcome to Capitalize Your Finances, the podcast that's your ultimate guide to mastering personal finances and unlocking the secrets of entrepreneurship. Each week, we dive into the world of personal finance and business development and have fascinating conversations with industry experts, seasoned entrepreneurs, and thought leaders who share their insights, strategies, and stories to help you get ahead in life. Whether you're a seasoned entrepreneur looking to scale your business or someone just starting out on your financial path, this podcast is your go-to resource for inspiration and actionable insights.
Welcome back to Capitalize Your Finances. As always, I'm your host, Christopher A. Panayiotou, certified financial planning professional, the Cap and Capitalize. And on today's episode, we are going to get into 4 tips to manage your budget during the holidays. And one of them is going to be a little spicy, and we're going to save that one for last. But as always, before we get into the meat and potatoes of today's episode, we've got the free tip of the week coming at you right now. When it comes to your portfolio, December can be a wonderful time to offset some taxes. Now, we've actually talked about this a couple episodes back, but it's worth the reminder, especially because December is rapidly approaching, if not already here. And so by the time December comes around, you have a very limited amount of time to offset any long-term or short-term capital gains within your portfolio. So let's say that you bought a stock in March of this year and you sold it for a nice little gain in October, okay? It's been within a year, so that is a short-term capital gain. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing, but in and of itself, a short-term capital gain is considered ordinary income, which is like a wage, which is taxed more inefficiently than a long-term capital gain. So if you bought a stock and let's say that it's at a loss within a year, that could offset the gain, which would bring your taxes down for the year in which the sale occurred. It's the same thing with long-term capital gains. So let's say that you have a company and you've owned it for a couple of years and it's done really, really well, like a lot better than you think, and you want to sell it, but you go, I don't want to pay the long-term capital gains. Like, is there a way for me to avoid that? And the way to avoid that, legally speaking, of course, is by utilizing a long-term capital loss. So let's say that you have a company that hasn't done as well over the last couple years or even longer, and it's just been a drag, but you've kind of just hung on to it because you haven't had a reason to get rid of it otherwise. Well, you could take that long-term capital loss and match it with a long-term capital gain. And the reason why December is so prominent as far as like this popular strategy is you've only got a couple weeks to figure it out. So December, you can actually make a lot of money in the taxes that you don't pay. And I also want you to know, and then we'll get into the meat and potatoes of this episode. Taxes, I don't want you to get totally fixated on taxes, and it's really worth repeating because some people, all they want to do is avoid as much tax as humanly possible. Sometimes it is worth paying tax and just moving on because even net of the tax, your gain is significantly better than you otherwise would have projected. So that's kind of, investing 401 for you as opposed to investing 101. But it's definitely worth noting. So if you need to go back and re-listen to this free tip of the week, highly recommend you do so. Now, I know that was a little elongated, a little long in the tooth with the free tip of the week. We are going to get into the 4 tips to manage your budget during the holidays. With number 1, do not start trying to improve your spending between November 1st and December 31st. That's kind of like saying, I'm going to go on a diet starting November 1st. Like, it's a really, really bad idea. Okay. Obviously, capitalizing your expenses is a wonderful goal to achieve. And it's actually one of our most popular questions that people ask about. But let's think about this for a second. You are going to spend, more likely than not, more from November 1st through December 31st than you have on average over any rolling 2-month period during this year because it's the holidays. And unless you don't love anyone, okay, you're probably going to want to spend on some presents and some gifts and some events or whatever the case may be. So your spending is going to be out of whack. And so by starting to, on November 1st saying, hey, I'm going to start to improve my spending habits, you're setting yourself up for an immense amount of failure because just by definition, you're going to be out of whack. And then you get into the behavioral financial side of things where you just beat yourself up, and then you're back to square one. And then starting in the new year, you just kind of give up. And I don't want you to do that. Okay. Now, that being said, I don't want you to think, oh, Chris said, I don't even need to think about my expenses from November 1st through December 31st. Screw it. I'm just going to go off and I'm going to spend like an absolute madman. I'm not saying that either. Just try your best to maintain your same standard of living, but also know if your spending is slightly elevated, it's because you got a conscience and a heart and you want to give to those that you love, or you want to give back to a nonprofit that you want to give to toward the end of the year. Okay. So what I would do is in January, so starting January 1, it's kind of a New Year's resolution goal as well. I would look at August through October of the year prior and go, okay, what was my average expense over that 3-month period of time on a monthly basis? And just by looking at that and looking at all of the things that you spend on a regular basis, and we've talked about this ad nauseum in the past, food, water, taxes, rent or mortgage, things of that nature. When you list all that out, then you can look at your variable expenses and go, okay, this is where I can start to cut costs. Now, the second tip to managing your budget during the holidays, actually write down your total dollar amount you are willing to spend and then allocate your money according to how many people you're going to go shop for. This sounds super, super simple, which it is. But for whatever reason, even though it's simple, it is not easy. And it's also amazing to me how many people, they stress out about shopping for loved ones during this time of year, and they overstress when this simple step is extremely curable in the stress side of things. And, this actually ties into my third item. But before we go into the third item, we're going to take a quick commercial break. I'm going to leave you with this lovely little cliffhanger. And then when we come back, we're going to get into the last 2 tips on managing your budget. And don't go away because number 4, I could rustle some feathers. Stick around.
Are you ready to transform the way you approach sales? This episode is sponsored by the second book in the Capitalize series, Capitalize Your Sales, the all-in-one sales framework that saves you from ever struggling again and teaches you how to sell with sincerity, which dives deep into the art and science of driving sustainable growth. Packed with strategies that go beyond surface-level techniques, this book will help you understand what it takes to truly connect with clients, build long-term relationships, and close deals. Whether you're looking to fine-tune your sales craft or break through to the next level, Capitalize Your Sales offers a roadmap to success designed for today's fast-paced business world. Head on over to your favorite bookstore, order today, and start capitalizing your sales immediately. And now, back to the episode.
Welcome back from the commercial break. I know the suspense was killing you. I'm sorry. Kind of, not really. I digress. We need to get into the third tip to manage your budget during the holidays. At the beginning of the year or start of summer, whatever you think is appropriate for starting to save up for Christmas shopping. Once you know the lump sum you are willing to spend, start to set your money aside per month automatically into your savings account so that you can avoid Parkinson's law when it comes to your money. Now, I know that was a little long-winded. If you need to go back and listen to that, 10 or 15 seconds, highly recommend you do so. But it is immensely, immensely valuable. So there's a couple things I was thinking about when I was conjuring up this episode in my mind. So the first thing, Parkinson's law, I've mentioned this on my show, probably more than I thought I would, but it's just so valuable to understand the concept of Parkinson's law. If you go back and watch the episode where I interviewed Nick Hutchison, founder of Book Thinkers, he actually broke it down beautifully into like what that is overall. But for you all, what I'm trying to do is have you avoid Parkinson's law. And, I'll save you in the details of what Parkinson's law is when you go back and you listen to the episode or episodes where we've talked about this. But one thing I was thinking about and it ties in to Parkinson's law, but it's just a different flavor. So one of my favorite investors of all time, who I actually had the pleasure of meeting this year in Omaha at the Berkshire Conference, Vitaly Katzenelson, nice, easy last name, easy last name. I remember he wrote, and this must have been, like 3 or 4 years ago. But regardless, he was talking about how every month, and again, he's an investor, so he has an investment mind. You need to get in the mindset that your money is automatically invested. And if you're not watching, I'm using quote unquotes, into experiences. So by the time the experience actually comes around, you're not figuring out how are you going to spend for this experience. And so looking at January or the summer, and again, I know this episode is coming out around the holiday season. And so people are going to go like, oh, too late. No. I'm trying to get ahead for the next year. And so in January or summer, whatever you think is most appropriate, I want you to think about, what am I going to spend in total for the holiday season? In this case, it's coming out at the end of 2024. So for 2025 and beyond. And so let's say the number is $5,000. Okay, great, whatever. You need to start setting that amount of money aside in January and automatically set it aside into a savings account. Again, preferably online savings if you don't already have one, because you can earn a little bit more interest on it. Now, depending on how interest rates move, yes, interest rates might drop a little bit, but online savings account historically do pay more than traditional banks. And so by getting that mentality of, okay, everything that I buy is an investment, including the experiences. So I need to invest prudently based on the time horizon of when these events occur. What's going to happen is next Christmas season, you're going to come around and go, oh, wow, that was a lot easier than I thought. So out of that 5,000, then obviously you divvy it up according to each person. And so, if I was part of that equation, 4,000 would be allocated to me. Totally kidding. But you get my point. Make it as easy as possible and systematic as possible, because the success in the world of money is eliminating the emotional unintelligence and gut reactions that one has with money. So then it just feels as if you're brushing your teeth. Like it's just, you do it. There's no emotion to it. Now, the last tip to manage your budget during the holidays. And again, this could rustle some feathers here, but we're going to do it anyway because I don't really care. Remember that the holiday season has nothing to do with getting presents. So unfortunately, we live in this world where people choose not to remember the true meaning of Christmas or Hanukkah. And, as a Christian, Christmas is about Jesus's birth. It's not about accumulating as many gifts as possible, as many, or giving as many presents as possible. It's not about this quantitative thing that we all get fixated on, especially in the United States. We're such a consumer-driven society. Christmas is about the time with your family, and it's not about spending as much money as you can. Now, remember, there is no greater gift than the true meaning of Christmas. And a close second to that is spending time with the ones that you love and you care about. Instead of opening up, your checkbook or, whipping out your credit card or debit card or cash, whatever the case may be. I challenge you to open up your mind and your heart and reflect on everything you have accomplished during this year. That is going to beat any present that you will ever receive. And I can make an argument that's going to beat any present that you give. I think it's much better to give than to receive. But the most valuable thing you can give someone is time, sincerity, and your heart. And that's really the key to best ending the year. And I know that last one is going to, to trigger some of you out there. Okay. Because we're supposed to be, what is it? We're supposed to, kind of level the playing field. Okay, well, I know you're a Christian, but you got to include everyone else or disinclude everyone. I am whom I am. Okay. I'm not hating anyone on it. Okay. But what I'm telling you is if you don't like, right, what Christmas is all about, or if you're even offended by what I just said, here's the thing. You don't have to listen. That is okay. And I know I'm probably going to lose some people from that. That's fine. I don't wish wrong on anyone that chooses to no longer listen because you don't have the same views. That's okay. That's totally okay. And I'll tell you what, I'm going to pray for you. I'm going to pray for you. I'm not saying you have to believe what I have to believe. But what I am saying is if you are just getting sucked into this consumer mindset or trying to just like ignore the true meaning of what this time of year is all about, that's going to lead to a really, really, really sad rest of your life. And I feel bad for you for that. So for those of you that keep sticking around, as always, I'm incredibly appreciative that you continue to do so. And I will see you next week. And remember everything that I told you about managing your budget during the holidays. Because again, it's very, very tough. I totally get it. But using these tips, whether it's this year or for sure the next year, you are going to be so glad that you've implemented all of this. And then you can actually enjoy what this season is all about. So as always, keep capitalizing. I'll see you next week. Take care. As always, thank you for joining me today. If you have questions about today's episode or any personal finance questions, please reach out to me at Cap and Capitalize on Instagram, Chris at capitalizeyourfinances.com, or via our website, capitalizepodcast.com. If you want more Capitalize Your Finances content, head on over to capitalizepodcast.com and check out our blog, free resources, book, and online course. As always, I'm your host, Chris Panayiotou, Certified Financial Planning Professional, the Cap and Capitalize. And until next time, keep capitalizing.
The information provided should not be considered specific tax, legal, or investment advice and is not specific to any individual's personal circumstances. Each taxpayer should seek independent advice from a tax professional based on his or her individual circumstances. These materials are provided for general information and educational purposes based upon publicly available information from sources believed to be reliable. The information in these materials may change at any time and without notice. There's no guarantee that any investment strategy will meet its stated objective. All investments involve risk, including potential loss of principal. Examples cited are hypothetical, are for illustrative purposes only, and are not guaranteed. Christopher Panayiotou is a registered representative with and securities and advisory services offered through LPL Financial, a registered investment advisor, member FINRA SIPC. Capitalize Your Finances LLC is a separate entity from LPL Financial. Capitalize Your Finances is not registered as a broker-dealer or investment advisor. CRPS conferred by College for Financial Planning. The people and companies mentioned in this podcast are not affiliated with or endorsed by LPL Financial or Capitalize Your Finances.